Good morning, evening, everyone. Today we're going to tackle one of the most painful and complex challenges many of us face on our spiritual journey. When the people closest to us, our own family members, become the greatest obstacles to our spiritual growth and well-being. This isn't about pointing fingers or creating division. It's about understanding a difficult reality and finding healthy ways to navigate it while maintaining our spiritual integrity and personal peace. Let me start with a question. How many of you have experienced resistance, mockery, or outright hostility from family members when you've tried to grow spiritually, change negative patterns, or pursue a path that doesn't align with family traditions or expectations? If you're nodding your head, you're not alone. This experience is far more common than most people realize, and today we're going to explore why it happens and what we can do about it. Understanding the phenomenon. Why family members resist your spiritual growth. Fear of change and loss of control. When you begin to change spiritually, it threatens the existing family dynamic. Your growth might mean you'll no longer accept dysfunction, enable poor behavior, or play the same role you've always played in family drama. This terrifies family members who benefit from the status quo, projection of their own spiritual insecurities. Your spiritual progress often acts as a mirror, reflecting back their own spiritual emptiness or stagnation. Instead of being inspired by your growth, they feel convicted by it, and rather than look inward, they attack outward at you. Investment in your old identity. Families often have a vested interest in keeping you exactly as you were. If you were the problem child, the people pleaser, or the family scapegoat, your evolution threatens their need to have someone fill that role. Misunderstanding of spiritual concepts. Sometimes family members genuinely believe they're protecting you from what they perceive as dangerous or misguided spiritual practices. Their opposition comes from fear and misunderstanding rather than malice. The painful reality. When family becomes your spiritual enemy, it creates a unique type of suffering because these are people you're supposed to trust and who are supposed to love you unconditionally. You may feel torn between family loyalty and spiritual authenticity. The attacks come from those who know your deepest vulnerabilities. Society tells us family should always come first, making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. Recognizing spiritual opposition from family. Subtle forms of opposition, emotional manipulation, guilt trips about changing or abandoning family values. Playing the victim when you set spiritual boundaries, using love and approval as weapons to control your choices. Constant criticism and undermining, mocking your spiritual practices or beliefs. Dismissing your growth as just a phase. Highlighting every mistake to prove your spiritual path is wrong. Sabotage. Creating crises during important spiritual events or practices, deliberately scheduling conflicts during your meditation, prayer, or worship times, spreading negative information about your spiritual choices to other family members. More direct forms of opposition, open hostility, verbal attacks on your beliefs or practices, threatening to cut off relationship or financial support, trying to turn other family members against you. Spiritual warfare, using religious manipulation or fear tactics, claiming your spiritual path will lead to damnation or harm, invoking family traditions or religious authority to suppress your growth. The deeper spiritual dynamics, understanding the energetic component. From a spiritual perspective, when we begin to raise our vibration and consciousness, we often outgrow the energy patterns we've been part of. Family systems are energetic ecosystems, and when one person elevates, it can create turbulence in the entire system, the crab bucket mentality. There's a phenomenon where crabs in a bucket will pull down any crab trying to escape. Similarly, family members sometimes unconsciously pull down the person trying to rise spiritually because your success highlights their stagnation, your peace threatens their chaos, your boundaries challenge their dysfunction. Generational patterns and spiritual bondage. Sometimes we're dealing with generational curses, trauma patterns, or spiritual bondages that have been passed down through family lines. Your spiritual awakening threatens these dark patterns, and family members who are still under their influence may become instruments of opposition. Strategies for protection and growth. Setting spiritual boundaries, information boundaries. Limit what you share about your spiritual journey with opposing family members. Don't feel obligated to explain or justify your spiritual choices. Create sacred spaces and times that are off-limits to family interference. Emotional boundaries. Don't internalize their criticism or let it derail your spiritual progress. Recognize that their opposition often says more about their spiritual state than yours. Maintain your center regardless of their reactions. Physical boundaries. Limit time spent in toxic family environments. Create physical space for your spiritual practices. Don't attend family events that consistently undermine your spiritual well-being. Spiritual protection practices. Daily spiritual armor. Begin each day with prayer, meditation, or spiritual protection rituals. Surround yourself with positive spiritual energy before family interactions. Carry spiritual symbols, crystals, or prayers that strengthen your resolve. Energy cleansing. Regularly cleanse your energy field after difficult family interactions. Use sage, prayer, visualization, or other cleansing methods. Don't carry their negative energy into your sacred spaces. Building your spiritual support network. Find your spiritual family. Connect with like-minded individuals who support your growth. Join spiritual communities, groups, or congregations. Seek mentors who have walked similar paths. Professional support. Consider working with spiritual counselors, therapists, or coaches. Don't underestimate the value of professional guidance in navigating family dynamics. Sometimes we need outside perspective to see clearly. Responding with wisdom and love, maintaining your heart. The goal isn't to become hard or resentful toward family members who oppose your spiritual growth. Instead, we want to respond from strength, not wounds. Don't react from hurt or anger. Respond from your spiritual center and highest self. Remember that hurt people often hurt people. Practice compassionate detachment. Love them from a distance if necessary. Pray for their spiritual awakening while protecting your own. Release the need for their approval or understanding. When to stay and when to leave. Temporary distance. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is create space until you're strong enough in your spiritual foundation to not be shaken. They've had time to process and potentially soften their opposition. The family dynamic shifts. Permanent boundaries. In extreme cases where family members are consistently abusive or destructive. Actively working against your spiritual and mental health, refusing to respect basic boundaries after repeated attempts. Remember, you cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and you shouldn't sacrifice your spiritual well-being trying to fix others. Moving forward in freedom, reclaiming your spiritual authority. Your spiritual journey is between you and the divine. You don't need family permission to grow, heal, and evolve. Their resistance doesn't invalidate your spiritual experiences or calling, creating your own spiritual legacy. Instead of being held back by family patterns, become the ancestor your future generations will thank you for. Break generational cycles of spiritual bondage. Model what authentic spiritual living looks like, finding peace in the process. The journey of outgrowing family dysfunction while maintaining love is one of the most challenging spiritual tests we can face. But it's also one of the most liberating. When you learn to stand in your spiritual truth despite family opposition, you develop an unshakable foundation that no external force can disturb. Remember, spiritual growth sometimes requires us to love people from a distance. This doesn't make you unloving or unfaithful. It makes you wise. Even Jesus had to set boundaries with his family when they didn't understand his mission. Your spiritual well-being matters. Your growth matters. Your peace matters. And sometimes protecting these things means disappointing family members who would rather keep you small, wounded, or controllable. I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways. Your spiritual growth is not negotiable. Don't sacrifice your relationship with the divine to keep peace with family members who oppose your highest good. Boundaries are an act of love. When you protect your spiritual energy, you're not only helping yourself, but modeling healthy behavior for others. You can love someone and still say no to their dysfunction. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse, manipulation, or spiritual sabotage. As we close, I encourage you to examine your family relationships through a spiritual lens. Ask yourself, which family relationships support my spiritual growth? Which ones consistently undermine it? What boundaries do I need to set? How can I love my family while still protecting my spiritual well-being? Remember, You're not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your spiritual growth. You're only responsible for staying true to your path and maintaining your spiritual integrity. Your spiritual freedom is worth fighting for, even when the battle is within your own family. May you find the courage to choose your spiritual well-being over family dysfunction, and may you discover the peace that comes from living authentically according to your highest spiritual calling. Thank you for your attention, and may your spiritual journey continue to flourish, regardless of who supports or opposes it.